on how to access a password-protected zip file. And this is from assignment 7. There are going to be several ways that you can attack this problem, but this is a demonstration of proof of concept, and so this will be just a short way of handling the problem. So here we have a zip file, homework W8, and if we click on it, it's going to have this text file. We double click on that, it's going to require a password, and so we can't see what's in there. Let's close out of that. Now, normally for the dictionary, we'd be using the ROCU or some other corpus that has a multitude of passwords that we could be using. But in this case, just because it's proof of concept, we're going to have just a short list of passwords, and that's it. But again, this is something that you'd want to use the ROCU corpus. Okay. So having said that, the first thing that we want to do is we want to be able to get to this directory, and so the best thing to do here is to change directory to the desktop, and so let's do that. And we should go into the password cracker underscore cracker. Okay, so now we're in the directory of the password cracker, and whatever we do here is going to happen in this directory. And it is important for these to be in the same directory. For the code we're going to write, if you were going to write a Python code that was going to be in a different directory, then you just, in the program, you would have to tell it what directory the two files are, the corpus and the target. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do here is we need to create a Python code. So I'm just going to call this let's see, cracker.py, I think. And one moment, I typed in the wrong command. What I did was use the touch command to create the py file in the directory. So we have a cracker py file. Right now there's nothing in there, but we're going to add some code here in a moment. All right, so now we have the new cracker.py file opened up, and we can begin to write our script. And I'll be going over this, discussing it in great detail, so that we know what's going on with Cracker. When I create a new file, one of the first things I want to do is make sure that everything is running properly. And the best way to do that is just do a print test, hit F5, enter, and that'll, if it comes up a test on the console, then that tells you that the test code, in this case cracker.py, is running. It did compile correctly, and test was output on the console. And once I have that, I can begin to write code. The thing I did was I typed in import zip file. This is going to help us to understand what we're to help the code give it the correct libraries in order to open up the zip file. I have two functions, and I like to set up my I like to set up my my code to handle the functions in a skeleton model. So I'm going to do that real quick now. There are two functions. The first one is the function main, and remember in Python the def reserved keyword tells us that what's going to follow is going to be the function. So this is main. And then the second function is called test pass, and that's just going to test each pass of the password. So once we call main, well, we have the two functions, main and test pass. Down here on line 23, this is also important. This is the piece of code that tells the compiler where the entry point is into the code. So it's telling the compiler to start with the main function. And that's really all line 23 and 24 are doing. Okay, so in the main function, we're going to try a statement here. There's some things that we're going to do. We're going to try a block of code. If that block of code fails, then we're going to run an exception. And I almost always write my code using try, catch, or in Python try except statements. because if it fails, I want to know why. So we're going to say accept the exception as E, and then here we're going to use the F to format the, there's going to be some formatting here, and we're going to say the string right here, this is all a string, and then this open close bracket tells the compiler that what's going to be inside here is actually a variable, and that variable is E, which is the exception right here. And then of course it returns because it failed, so there's no reason I'm going further. Next, assuming that it all passes, then it will drop down to the next try statement, which is on line 10. And here will be the actual meat where it actually tries to read the dictionary. If reading the dictionary fails, then there'll be an error in reading the dictionary, and that will be returned here. Okay, so we have two things that need to happen. We need to try and open the zip file. We need to try and read the dictionary. If any of these fail, then the test is over. Now down here in the test pass, we're going to have to write some code that actually does the meat. This is where we're going to pass the password and the zip file to try and test the password against the zip file until it opens. And so we'll be writing that code. So this right here is just the skeleton of the code. The two functions, the entry point, and then our try except statements and our exceptions. I'm going to create a variable in the try statement here that says zip_file_path, and this is going to tell the code where the zip directory is located, so what we're looking for. And what we're looking for is this right here. Now, because the code is in the same directory as the file that we're cracking, the target file, we don't need to have anything else in here. But if it wasn't, then this is right in here is where you would place in your backward slash whatever, and your directory to where this target file is at. But in our case, for simplicity, we just do it all in the same directory. Okay, so all this is telling us is where the path is to the zip file that we're cracking. A new piece of code here, and this we have a new variable called zip_file, and it's going to say we want to capture the actual zip file from the zip path that was up here. So we're taking this directory and we're putting it in here, and from there we're going to use the zip library to find the zip file, and that zip file is going to be set to the variable zip_file. One thing I want to emphasize here is that this is trying to find the zip file and see if it will open. So if that fails, then it's going to jump to the exception and print out that there was an error opening the zip file, and then of course give us the whatever the exception was. So find the directory, try to open the file. If it fails, print out an error message. If it opens the file, the code jumps down to number 11, and we start a new try block statement, a new try catch statement. And that's right here. And what's going to happen here is we're going to open the dictionary.txt file, and you can see here it's going to be, we're using the argument read only, and this part here is very interesting. We're going to use the encoding ISO 8859-1, and instead of the what's it called, UFS 8. 1 minute here is what I'm trying to say. Early morning hours. Okay, so the reason that I use this instead of UTF-8 is because now in our code, in our program, our dictionary is very simple, just an example. However, there's going to be times when you might be using a dictionary such as the ROCU and combined with maybe your own words that you're going to add, depending on how you've researched your target. And there could be other ASCII characters or older encoding that won't work with UTF-8. So the ISO 8859 can handle those types of issues, and so it gives us a broader character set. It helps with fallback for unknown encoding. If there's any unknown encoding or weird things happening, then this will take care of that. It also does better error handling. It's much more forgiving should there be an issue than UTF-8. And another big one, it's also backwards compatible. So this one is really, really good, especially when dealing with a large corpus, which usually you're going to be dealing with a very large corpus. So that's why we use this encoding. And once we open the dictionary using this encoding, we're going to set that as this right here, the dictionary file, or dict file. If there's any issues with opening this, then it's going to throw an exception, where again, just like before, we're going to capture that exception in the E variable, we're going to print it out, and we're going to output that exception right here along with this string. Now, this is the steps so far. So we've opened the zip file, we've opened the dictionary. Now we're ready to go. Code to lines 13 through 17. So this is what's new right here. This is a simple for loop, and what we're doing is we're saying we're going to open up that dictionary and we're going to read each line in the dictionary. And for each line, we're going to strip any extra characters, any empty space actually, and then we're going to set that line equal to the password, which makes sense since our dictionary only contains single words. So it's going to strip away any white spaces at the beginning or the end, and we're left with just the password. And that's what we're going to have here. The next thing we're going to do is let's see here. Let me open this a little bit more. We're going to just put out a quick little print saying that we're attempting to crack the zip file using the password, and it'll tell us what password we're using. And that's just for us so we can track things. Also in scope of the for loop, we have an if statement. And this if statement is when we're finally going to call the next function, which is test pass right here on line 22. And we're going to pass it the zip file and the password, whichever password we're testing. Remember, this is in a for loop. And then we're going to have to do some coding in here to help actually try and crack the password. So all of this right here, main through line 3 through 17, all that's about is opening the two files, the zip file and the text, and it's trying to run each password against the zip file, calling the test pass function right here. If it passes, then we break. That's it. Okay. So if it fails, but of course the fail is up here on the try. It's going to try all this. Any fails, we jump out here saying there's no error in the dictionary. Done. All right. So now let's go down to the function test passed, and we'll work from there. 26 we're at it, and what we're doing is we're using the library zip file .extract all to extract the zip file, and we're passing it the password that's being passed in this loop here. We're using the UTF-8. Now you're probably wondering why UTF-8 here but not up here, and the reason is because zip files we're using bytes directly, so the encoding doesn't really matter. There's no issue there because again the zip file we're working with bytes directly. All right, so having done that, it's going to try and open it. If it opens it, then the password. Return true. Done. If it doesn't open it, it fails, and we print out that the password failed, or return false. And then we're back up to where this function was called, which was right up here somewhere, right here. And if the test is false, then it's going to run again. Until we iterate through all of the different passwords in the file. 15 is what checks to see what was returned here. So we have return false and return true. True if the password is found, false if it wasn't. So on line 16, if true, then we break because we found the password. If false is returned, then this fails, and we continue the iteration through the passwords, and we loop again through this for loop. So it's just right here from line. We jump back to line 13 and we do it all over again. Line 13 all over again, calling this function each time until the password is either found or we iterated through every one of the possible passwords in the dictionary. That's it. So let me clean this up a little bit as far as make sure the formatting's done. Remember, in Python, everything in scope is determined by the indent. So everything here is in scope with this function. Everything here is in scope with the try statement, and so forth. So for example, try has with in scope, well, actually try has all of this in scope. But if you look at the coding, then each one of these is in scope. So for example, break is in scope with if, and then all of this is in scope with for. So there's just subcategories of in scope. Except is not in scope with any of this stuff unless there's a failure. In scope, except is only in scope with the main function here, and that's assuming it passes the first try. All right, so that's really it. It's a pretty simple little piece of code. Get an error like this, an indent does not match any outer indentation, so you just need to fix your indents, make sure that everything is indented properly. You can see that the indent doesn't quite line up, so the T here should line up perfectly with this and this right here, and it doesn't. It's a little bit to the right, so we're going to fix that. Now I'm going to just hit F5, back to here, F5, and enter, and still an error somewhere. This one here looks like it's off, so let's fix that one. Try again, and there we go. Okay. Now, if you take a look at the outputs, it tested Apple, and it tells us that that one failed, and then right through the list until it hit the correct one here, and then you see found password for zip file COP 2030. And not only did it find it, but when it opened the zip file, it created it opened the zip file, and it extracted the contents. And if we click on that, you've cracked the code. Good job. That was it. So pretty simple. I want to emphasize this would not work on dual two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication, anything like that. However, there are ways to defeat that. This is just how to use how a cracking password code works, the steps it goes through, and this is a brute force attack, by the way. So if you were doing this in the real world, you would want to do heavy research on your target, and that includes social media sites, all that type of stuff. And then you'd want to write a different program that tried all combinations of first names, last names, birth dates, everything you could find, and then throw that into your corpus, the corpus of words. And that's a whole different little piece that we do. But your likelihood of cracking a password using that methodology is much stronger if you do a targeted attack on the password using information from any social media sites. And the more active a social media site, the more likely they are to give you an incredible amount of information. You're going to want to find maiden dates, first names, last names, if they have children, their children's names, their children's birthdays, all that kind of stuff. If you go to the site, you should find that type of information, and then you want a program to then look at all combinations of birth dates, months, all that kind of stuff, in order to find the most likely password that most people are going to use. Of course, this won't work on anybody using a password managing software because they're going to be completely meaningless and 15 digits or more. But most people aren't doing that. So this is still a very useful attack strategy. That's it.